I asked him if he trusts the generals. When there was a delegation here last week that cut the, that sort of got a sense of the mood and cut their meeting short and went home. And now I believe General Dempsey is in Egypt right now. Probably sort of, I'll be curious to see where that goes. But no, it's going. I did not realize until I came to DC just how livid the administration and particularly the Congress is about this NGO thing, and just how close to a genuine break in relations, not in relations, but in the funding, or a halt to the funding, just how close we are to that. So all bets are off with this NGO thing. I mean, it's spiraling out of control, it feels like. And I'm not sure. I think I'm having a hard time. A week ago, the Egyptians could have backed down from this. I don't know that they can anymore. I mean, go ahead.
Well, what does it say about their ability to read the American political scene?
I think it's not terribly sophisticated. And I think it's not just because they were generals. I think the Mubarak administration always seemed to think, and individual Egyptian citizens fall for this as well, in that you're used to an imperial executive branch. And so there was always this perception among the Egyptian people and partially within the Egyptian government that all you have to do is convince the president of something and he would make it happen, because that's the way it would work in Egypt. It didn't matter what the parliament thought, it mattered what the presidency thought. So I don't think they understood. And I'm sure there were savvy people inside the administration who understood Congress and understood how to work Congress. And in the ambassadors that we've had, I've always had the impression they were pretty good, the Egyptian ambassadors, not terrible at least. Within the military, I don't think there's any reason that they would understand how to work Congress. And the parliamentarians in Egypt, why would they know? Because they were figureheads. It wasn't the legislative branch that was dealing with the legislative branch. Here, it was the executive branch that was doing all the deals, and the executive branch is gone. So it's kind of a clean slate. Maybe I'm not surprised that they misread this.
And can you shed some light on really what motivated this case in Egypt? Is it all Faiz Abu Naga? Is it who's pushing it, and what's the motivation?
I swear, it really wasn't until I came to Washington. I did not leave Egypt thinking that Faiz Abu Naga, the Minister of International Cooperation in Egypt, who's a longtime Mubarak holdover, that she was driving this. I've heard this perception, this perspective in Washington. It's not perceived as such in Egypt, but
it's a narrative that the State Department is putting forward.
Which
is to take heat off of this guy.
Is that?
Right.
I mean, are you not buying the Faiza as
no,
ringleader
of all
this?
But that's what the State Department is saying, is that we don't
give
think
the SCAF an out.
Control. Yeah, we don't think that this is the SCAF initiative, and now it's spiraled out of control and beyond their.
That's plausible, because I was really surprised when I heard of all the left and right in Washington. It's like, oh, Faiz Abu Naga. I was like, really? Her? Okay, maybe.
But regardless, why would the SCAF?
Why would they? Okay.
Pushing this now?
I think they misjudged. My theory at the beginning of this was that hitting the foreign NGOs was a smokescreen for a move against the local NGOs. That they round up NDI and IRI and Freedom House. They also hit half a dozen local NGOs, including one whose mission is budgetary oversight. So keep in mind, one of the priorities, one of their end games for the military, they don't want to run the country. They hate this. They want to keep their perks. They want to keep their very robust economic machine going. And they don't ever want to have to open up their budget to some bunch of elected civilians. That's a deal breaker for them. And they're frankly, they're going to have to be broken on that. And it might take 10 years. So I thought at the beginning that they hit that it was a reasonably clever plan. They hit the foreign NGOs. The media is going to focus on them. Eventually, IRI and NDI and Freedom House, we get their computers back. Meanwhile, there's a half a dozen crucial Egyptian NGOs whose work is set back a decade, and nobody really notices. That interpretation no longer applies. I no longer really understand what's happening, and I don't think anyone here does. I think it might have sort of gotten into this sort of kind of macho sovereignty thing, You know, I don't find the only rational reason that things have gone this far is if they really think these people were spies. It's one of the only remaining logical explanations. Because even if they misjudged the way this would play in Congress, even if they didn't understand how important Congress was to their funding, that their funding doesn't come from the Pentagon, it comes from the Congress. Even then, even in the if you want to argue that the generals are just not terribly cosmopolitan, that don't really understand how Washington works, even from that perspective, within a limited Middle Eastern context, you know damn well that you do not mess with the son of a minister. That's mathematics that any general understands. And once they started messing with the son of a minister, I stopped understanding what they were trying to do.
One last question.
Hi, I'm Yasmin Tai from the Levante Group. I'm actually curious to know what you think the ramifications would be of placing any sort of conditions on the aid to the staff or cutting their funding, and whether you think that would be smart policy, and also what you see, I guess, the role of the staff in the post-revolutionary Egypt. What sort of role do you think?
I'd be curious to see what conditions they could put and how specific they would get in those conditions. I mean, one of the things, and I know this might be unrealistic, but it remains one of my growing obsessions, and I'd love to see a way that America could push this. I mean, people are constantly asking me, what can America do? I get the feeling that people here feel like their hands are tied, because if they come out on the side of the NGOs are going, oh great, with friends like this, you know, this doesn't help us. You know, America's reputation is so checkered, and some of that is unfair, and some of that is entirely deserved. So, but I would love to see a way that America could quietly or overtly push for interior ministry. I think interior ministry is being forgotten in all this. I really need to see, one of my metrics for the success or failure of this revolution is going to be where the interior ministry stands. Because right now, just nothing has been done. I want to see a civilian interior minister with a popular mandate and permission to fire everybody above, you know, lieutenant colonel, and just start over. You know, golden parachute them and send them home. You know, if there's a way that, but America can't openly push for that, of course. They certainly can't put that in writing, because that is kind of a challenge to Egypt's sovereignty. Quietly, I really don't know what America can do overtly, because it's going to backfire. You know, so I think right now America has to say as little as possible openly, and a lot quiet, and a lot behind closed doors, and maybe that'll change. The role of the SCAF? As little as possible. I mean, they should have a seat at the table for foreign policy discussions, but not veto power. They should not be larger than the executive branch. I mean, they keep talking about the Turkish model, and that's what I think the Turkish model, they think the Turkish model is, but the Turkish model was designed by Ataturk, who sort of built the country and said, this is the role of the military, and he was worshipped as the father of the nation. We don't have that. Nobody gave them this power. They gave themselves this power. So I think they should be part of foreign policy deliberations, and beyond that, they should just be the army. And I don't know how to crack their economic power as well. They're one of the largest landowners in the country. They own factories. They're one of the largest bottled water manufacturers in the country. They're everywhere. They're this octopus. I don't know how you dismantle it.
Well, thank you. We're running short of time. I think we're going to be discussing the Egypt-U.S. relationship for weeks to come. In the meantime, we'd like to sell books. Ashraf will be signing at this table. We'll be actually doing the selling here at the podium, so bring your credit cards. The books are being sold for $29, and then you can get your book signed. And I just want to thank Ashraf once again for his fabulous insights. Thank you.